All right, here we go. OverDrive off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, and up on TSN 4. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan. How we feeling on a Monday afternoon?
Ready to
I
rock.
have one question.
Yes.
I have one question. On Friday, did JP do the right thing and nullify the game that was mentioned?
The Thursday nighter, the pick that started
The guy
the
with
dynasty?
the guy
No.
with a
No.
lot of the people were handing back bets because it wasn't fair.
No.
Why did you
Who
not
was
know?
handing
I didn't
back-
know
No,
the
not-
guy had a broken wrist.
He didn't have a broken wrist, Joe Burrow. For starters, there's video out of him warming up that game. He's slinging it as if he's 100%. Go find the warm-up tape. No one on earth thought this guy had a legitimate injury.
Right.
And there's no bigger loser move than complaining and asking for a nullified pick, especially 4 days after the fact. It's Monday. You had yourself a pretty good week. All right? It was okay. You guys got lucky, quite frankly, last night and in that Browns game. If Kenny Pickett had normal-sized hands, the Steelers would have won by 2 touchdowns yesterday.
I'll tell you, there's some rumblings about cabbage fingers. Like, there is rumblings.
He's brutal.
Yeah,
He's
he is.
brutal.
Dude, what about across the league? It's like, is there not American kids or anybody growing up saying, there's no quarterbacks, man. There's
Well-
a quarterback shortage in the world.
Yeah, there is at this point in terms of
Yes.
elite quarterbacks. Like Joe Flacco just got another job. Joe Flacco
What?
was
What?
signed
Where?
in Cleveland.
I didn't see that.
Yes, Joe Flacco, like when in doubt, you get yourself a ring a decade ago, Joe Flacco is going to
Where's
stick
he
around.
been playing?
Nowhere.
In his backyard.
Yes, everyone thought it was the end of the road, and it's not. And that's why when you see like what happened in the CFL, Cody Fajardo is not going to the NFL. But credit to him. That was that throw he threw to win the game last night was phenomenal. It was a great winning drive. It was
tell
a
you
great,
what,
great cup.
It was an
Awesome
unbelievable Grey Cup. Green Day was ridiculous.
game. They were great.
Like, I thought going into it, I was like, all right, I had it on one of the TVs. I'm like, I'll be watching it, but wasn't as enthused because Toronto wasn't in it. And it ended up being, and I also thought Montreal was going to just try and I thought Winnipeg was going to
I thought Winnipeg as well, and that's why I give full credit to Montreal. That's kind of the beauty of the CFL is that over 8 days you win 2 big games, you're victorious.
Yeah.
And yet they were 11-7 on the season. It's not
Yeah,
like
they
they were
weren't-
terrible. The Argos overshadowed everything. The Argos overshadowed everything because they were 16-2, and the Owls went in, and though they beat up on the Argos last week, it was more about Chad Kelly performing the way he performed. No one was even focusing on Montreal.
Well,
To the point where they didn't have French signage in Hamilton, which admittedly is a bit of a misstep. When you have one of the 2 teams in the game is from Quebec, you should probably have some French signage up there, considering people from Quebec are probably going to be traveling to the game.
Yeah, I don't know.
What do you mean signage?
Well, those were the reports that I guess all over Tim Hortons Field. It was just English signs, like in terms of everything. And I guess
Do you mean like section 105 bathroom?
Yes, entrance, exit, all that kind of stuff. And it became a big story out of Quebec, RDS. There was obviously a French player that went viral last night after the game. Although I don't believe for a second that was motivating for the 95% English-speaking players that aren't from Quebec. Like, I don't think Cody Fajardo, who I believe is from California, was sitting there saying, I got to get these guys. Yeah. I got to get these guys because I'm not seeing enough French.
Was that bulletin board material?
Yeah, there's no way it was bulletin board
I'm not going to
material.
speak to the business of it.
But it should have been there because Montreal was in the game.
I get it.
Like Montreal, I think in general it probably should be. It is the Canadian Football League. It's a championship game. There's people from all 4 corners of the country getting there. We are a bilingual country, but specifically with Montreal there. But I think it was because everyone just assumed the Argos were going to be there.
Wow.
Like the Argos are going.
10 days
they
ago,
didn't.
10 days ago, I thought it was a lock for the Argos. And then going into yesterday's game, I was like, Winnipeg's going to rinse them.
Yeah.
But the Alouettes have an unbelievable 10 days. They take the 2-headed monster really down, and good on them.
The CFL the last 10 years has got, maybe not 10, but I think the Argos did it against the Bombers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they do it against Calgary in Ottawa, where they weren't like
Shock in
Calgary
the
was
world.
a heavy. Yeah, it's like that goes against my theory of the Cinderella. It's like the CFL, the Cinderella gets it done sometimes. A lot of the times.
That's right. That's
in the last
exactly
10
what it
years.
was. That's what the Argos have done it twice in the last decade or so. They did it with Ricky Ray, where they were, I believe, a 9-9 team, even 8-10 possibly. And again, the Owls were 11-7. It's not like they backdoored into the playoffs. They were clearly the second best team in the East.
Right.
But then they walk into Toronto, spank the Argos. Then they go there last night. They didn't spank Winnipeg. Winnipeg had that. They needed one stop, and they couldn't get the stop. And it was it turned out to be a very memorable game. It was a great game, and credit to Montreal for winning the Grey Cup. And Rod Smith had a great call. Like those are the calls you're looking for, right?
Yeah.
And the legend himself will join us in a couple of hours. My dear friend Rod Smith.
He likes you now.
He
right?
loves me. He and I have always been buddies.
Did you have to send a text saying, "Hey, let's smooth things over. We got to do a show here. We got to be on the."
No,
I don't think there was
anything over.
There was never a disagreement. What it was is you both would pass each other in the hallway, and you both are kind of keep to yourself. Correct?
Both thought the other guy was a creepazoid. Both thought the other guy was weird and weirded out when the other was around them.
No, I don't think that's true.
Yes,
You've
dude,
created this monster.
No, I haven't.
Yes, you
That's
have.
a narrative.
You've
that
created
Bo
this
made up.
monster. Admittedly, there were times where we're both busy guys. You know, if I'm in a break and I'm running somewhere and trying to get back, or Rod's trying to get to a 6 p.m. sports center, he's got a meeting or something, or he's something to go. He's going to tape. You know, it doesn't allow for a stop and chat. So it might have been a nod of acknowledgement. How's it going? And you move on. But that doesn't mean that there's anything deeper to it. Rod Smith is a legend, right? He's a legend, and I've always loved Rod Smith, and I think it's mutual. And Rod's coming up in a couple of hours, so we'll get his take on Cody Vacciardo, how he played yesterday, how the Owls have done it here. You know, again, going through the East and beating the Argos last week and getting past the Bombers last night. And we'll get into a number of things with him, including what he thought of Green Day, because I thought they were really good last night. And I've always been a fan of Green Day.
I love them.
So it fits. It's interesting how when you become a band like that, like you got to stay committed. You go one of two ways. You're like, are we going to stop dyeing the hair, stop wearing the clothes, and just be like, all right, it was 30 years ago, but now they're still committed. They're like, we are a punk rock band. We are going to do this.
I
thought they were great last night.
They're awesome.
They were outstanding.
They're awesome. And they put a good show on.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, he dropped one F-bomb that made
That's
it
fine.
through, which I actually
That's all right.
applauded.
What are you going to do?
Loved it.
It's a Sunday night.
Exactly.
It's
Adults
fine.
are
It's a Grey
watching. I
Cup.
loved it. I thought it was
That's
awesome.
the lyric.
But
I think swearing's becoming normal. Like, it's just, I don't want to start swearing on this show, but it's like Pat McAfee's on ESPN every day, and he swears all the time. It's like, what's so bad about the odd swear word slipping out? It's I don't know. I think it's just becoming a little bit.
Talk to your boy Brad Faxon about that.
Fax likes to come on here and drop an F-bomb.
I forgot about that.
Very liberal.
Talking about a Greg Norman story or some silly nonsense.
It happens.
You're
but
right,
you know
though.
what?
You're right, though. Even parenting, like we're all parents, and I try to avoid it. We all try to avoid it. But I remember growing up as a kid, like it was so frowned upon. If there was a swear word, anything said about anyone, it was like, don't you dare do that. Apologize immediately. Now it's like, and I don't know if that's a good thing or not. We'll see. I guess the next generation will have to be the one that will determine that. And I'm not saying I swear all the time around my house, but if I'm on the phone with one of you guys and I accidentally swear, it's like, my kids are there. What am I going to do? I should smarten up a little bit.
My kids are aware of swear words.
They're aware of it.
Steph's got a trucker's mouth. It just happens.
Yeah, Steph's at fault for anything that happens.
No, but you know what? The kids, what I want to teach my kids, the difference of how you use it and when you use it.
Exactly.
That's the difference.
That's the difference.
And I don't know if that's the right way, but they hear
all
daddy.
learning
They hear daddy swear.
Every once in a while it happens.
It is what it is.
Every once in a while it happens. But it was an interesting weekend because, again, you had the Grey Cup. Obviously, it was a wild weekend in the NFL. We got a big Monday nighter tonight. Hayes and Bro on the clock. This is a really tough game with the Eagles and Chiefs. Probably the game of the season, which, if the NFL has shown us anything this year, means it'll be a dud or there'll be a big injury or someone will win by 14 or 21 tonight. I hope that's not the case. No, it's in Kansas City. It's in Kansas City. Chiefs are -2.5 favorite. So it's a big one tonight. And
I already know who you're picking. I know the trends. I know how you've spoken about certain teams and certain situations. I already know your pick.
Go ahead.
I'll
You can
write
say it. Write it down. Write it down. Or you can say it. It doesn't matter. Like the pick is in.
You're taking KC.
Okay.
I know you're taking.
Well,
KC.
the pick will be made in about an hour's time. Luke will be in here. Al's brother will join us, and Hayes and Bro on the clock making the pick tonight. So you had the NFL, you had the Grey Cup going. Obviously, the Raptors, they lost Friday night. They blew out Detroit. That Pistons team is something else. They are absolutely horrendous. And Cade Cunningham, you can see it. He's already wearing it on his face. Get me out of here. Like, they have just been in a perpetual state of terrible play for a long, long time.
Well, that's the Columbus Blue Jackets, like what they're involved in. It's like get young players, they become stars, and it's like I don't want to play here anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it's how do you ever get over the hump if you draft first overall Cade Cunningham and he has that look on his face like I can't stand this. We suck so bad. Who knows if he even likes Detroit or not? But it's like how do you get over the hump if you're that bad? Like how?
If you have a player of his magnitude, shouldn't they be working to surround him with
Ideally,
better
that
players
is the
to drag-
case.
The Connor Bedard situation.
Yeah.
You watch Chicago
But
play.
they're
like,
terrible, Chicago. They are doing
No kidding.
exactly
And
what
don't
we knew
kid
they
yourself.
would.
They're
Right.
under the gun a little bit to say
Yeah.
next year we better put better players around
They
this
are.
guy,
You're
or
right.
else he's going to be rolling his eyes saying, "Really?"
But I watched them play. They're not getting blown out 9-1 every night. And what they've done this year, they will continue to kind of grow. But I think they've got some players there like Foligno and Perry aren't going to be there long term. This
Right.
is the first year for Bedard. They will surround him with better players as the rebuild.
You hope
continues.
they will.
I think they will.
I think they will. But again, I would guess in Detroit, they're like, when we got Cunningham, here we go.
Right.
And it's 3 years removed. He had a major injury, but they are still one of the worst teams in the league.
Well, you hope that's my point. 3 years in, they can't be doing that to Bedard.
No.
Next year
This is
has
not
to be a big-
surprising. Like,
Right.
Chicago was always going to be one of the worst
Right.
5 or 6 teams in the league, and that's exactly what they are, and that is what they will continue to be. It is not surprising at all.
Right.
But, yes, that's why when you look at where the Leafs were at, when they bottomed out to get Matthews, what was already in the tank was Marner and Nylander and Hyman and Brown, and they had carryover guys who were good players. Like Riley was here and ready to pounce and get into his prime. You had Bozak and JVR and Kadri. It's, again, Austin Matthews, very fortunate that he got drafted into the situation he did, because he could have gone somewhere else that was just going to be a mess for a long, long time.
Right.
Like even Edmonton had pieces in place. I think McDavid's rookie year they missed. But then beyond that, it was like Draisaitl's there, Nugent Hopkins there.
Right.
They got pieces. Darnell Nurse was there, I believe, at that point.
He was.
And it was like, okay, you got something surrounding you here. You can make something of this.
Yeah.
And, yeah, that is the nature of the beast. And when you look where the Maple Leafs are at, again, this is their 8th season with Matthews, Marner, and Nylander. They had a really successful weekend. It were kind of wild games. There were ups and downs. It's not as if they played perfect hockey by any means. But I think you go on a trip like that and you fly home with 4 points, I don't think you really have to explain a thing.
I don't think you could. We've talked
You don't
about this
complain about
before.
anything.
I saw it trending online on the weekend and that. There are people whispering about, hey, they're lucky to get it. Look, like it's hard. You can critique a win in the way of you're looking at big picture, but a win is a win is a win. That's the way I look at it. But if you are looking at the bigger picture, are there pockets of concern or all of that? I throw this weekend out the window in the sense that they're playing at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday.
Yeah,
you're trying to
it's
find
Stockholm.
it. But you are trying to find it. There were obviously some great performances. We're watching
Willie was
finish
phenomenal.
it off, and it's just kind of it's been a banner start for him. But what a kind of a cherry on top for a homecoming, right? But it just you can critique the bigger picture. I'm not critiquing wins. That's the way I look.
They're just
at it.
bluffing it a little bit right
You're
now,
right.
guys.
That's
And you can't deny that. A win is a win. They won 4 in a row. They are trending in the right direction. I don't know if it's going to be the same thing last year, where I think about this time, Hayes, they took off and they just strung together an incredible stretch, and they cemented themselves in the playoffs. But they are bluffing it a little bit. It's not exactly a game of perfect. The sport never is. But they got some work to do if they really, really want to dial this in, because I don't know the way they're playing. They did get 2 wins. The 2 teams they beat, it's not great competition.
Not great teams.
Let's be honest. If they want to be considered a real deal team, they've got to really tidy some things up. But I just don't know if it's in their DNA. Like I've talked to you guys in the past about like hanging on. I could show you guys a highlight pack, and I'm probably going to do it on Friday, of the simple, stupid giveaways. Like they just lose the puck where it's just throw it away, try a stupid play where they shouldn't be doing it, and it's like, I don't know. And I'm not going to dump on them. They just came back from Sweden with 2 wins.
Well,
but if they want to be serious, they better clean it up. And there's one thing I just can't understand. As good as William Nylander was, Hazy B, it's like, I don't understand. Like, the guy deserves to get paid or whatever. But how come Matthew Tkachuk was like up for the Hart Trophy, scored over 100 points, and it's like, you're getting $9.5 million in Florida. That's like, is that because of the taxes, or does everyone like screwing with us here in Toronto where it's like, now it's $12 million. Now it's like as much. Like, I don't understand it. It wasn't Matthew Tkachuk. He's a damn good player. He had an unbelievable season. Is that just because of Florida that he gets $9 million? All of a sudden, every day, this guy's getting $1 million more. I know he's been unbelievable, but what the hell is going on here?
Well, yeah, I mean, we were talking about it off air. Like, I read LeBrun's article.
And Pierre's coming up later.
Right.
We'll ask Pierre about
I was
it.
laughing
Who are
about
these
it.
turkeys?
Well,
Like,
that's what I'm saying.
that's 12 and a half times 8.
Do you think?
That's what I'd say.
But I would, of
Why
course.
wouldn't you jam
Yeah,
up
no
the
kidding.
But if you're
I
a
think
rival
it's gonna be
manager, you're going to be
14.
like, of course, pay him.
Yeah.
Because all they're doing is running the price up, and they're laughing from the outside.
Right.
Like, it just, Willie has been fantastic, and I don't know what the price tag will end up. I really don't. But I would have bet money on it 3
Jamie,
weeks ago
isn't the
that
guy
it was
down
something
in
with
Florida,
a 9 in it.
Matthew Tkachuk, a good example?
hell of a player.
The guy was on fire. He was up for the MVP or in the conversation. He gets traded to Florida, and it's like 9.5.
Keep
That's about
in
what you
mind,
get.
guys, that's 2 years in a row he had 100-plus points. Kachuk.
Kachuk.
Yeah.
Well, no, to clarify, he signed before he played a game for Florida.
Right, so
it was a sign and trade. He had the massive year in
Right.
Calgary, wanted a trade, basically demanded a trade.
Yeah.
Picked Florida, and that was a part of it too. And that's what comes into play here is that, Nylander, like the other guys on the team, is going to have to make a decision at some point where he wants to play.
Yes,
And if you want to
because
play in Toronto, then I would think the Leafs at some point will say, yes, we are willing to come closer to you because we love you, William Nylander. They have made that very clear.
Yep.
This is what is bothering me, is that I would assume they are within a ballpark of each other. Right? Let's say the Leafs want to give him 9 a year and Willie wants 10.5. Those are arbitrary numbers. Those are my numbers. I'm not reporting that. But I think we're all smart enough to understand. It's probably
They're not offering him 6.
They're not offering him 6, and I don't believe Nylander's asking for 13. I could be wrong on both, but I doubt it. My guess would be it's a ballpark where they're comfortable that they'll probably find a resolution there. Because regardless of what rival GMs are going to say off the record or anonymously, I don't believe there's a team in this league that's going to make him one of the 2 or 3 highest paid players in the game. It's not going to happen. And I love William Nylander as a player. And the Leafs have made it very clear they want to keep him. And I think he's made it clear publicly he wants to stay.
Right.
So what you got to ask is, okay, how are they going to find a middle ground, which they probably should, right? And they probably will at some point. And will this philosophy continue where they're going to put all their eggs into the baskets of, 4 or 5 players?
No kidding.
And that's
It's like you
probably
come
what's
to
gonna end up
Toronto
happening.
to load up your pockets. I'm so sick. As much as I've enjoyed watching William Nylander, I like analyzing his play, breaking them down. This is special. This is great. It's like, is Toronto ever going to be the place where it's like a quality team, or is this come here and let's see how many guys we could make, like pay $12 million? As much as it's like they put it on themselves, it's like, what are we doing here? Is this just about how much money like these skill players can make without a lot of winning involved? I don't get it. As much as we should be celebrating William Nylander and how great he's been, it just comes back to, this guy's driving the the price through the roof. Why the hell wasn't Matthew Tkachuk driving the price through the roof?
Well, he was, and he demanded out.
Right.
Like he left. He left.
Okay,
Calgary.
but why didn't he say to Florida, it's about 11.5 because
I can't give you that answer, and I don't know why that's the case. I can tell you why it happens here. It's because this market is infatuated with it, and we're all guilty of it, this show included.
Infatuated with what?
The money constantly, as opposed to the winning. Like what drives me crazy, and this is why it continues to happen. Now you're going to rile me up here, is what happens every single year. They are 17 games into the regular season. And Leaf fans, not all, but a lot of them are freaking out as opposed to freaking out when they lose in the playoffs every year. And this is why they keep bringing the band back, because they know Leaf fans are going to do this. 17 games into the regular season, William Nylander would probably be up for the Hart today if it were nominated, or real close to it. He's been their best player. Guy's got 27 points. He's got points in 17 straight. He is a rock star right now.
Yep.
They drafted, developed him. He's been with the team for 8 years. He got drafted almost a decade ago. They love him. He loves them. It's an incredibly positive story.
Yep.
I also, to be fair to him, because, and all these players for that matter, it always comes up, well, it's a contract year. He just wants money. Maybe it's that he hates losing and he actually wants to win. Right? Yeah. Maybe. I don't know if that's the case, but I'd like to believe it because it happens everywhere else. We see it with every other player. When McDavid was off to a great start last year, it wasn't, well, he wants to get paid in 3 years. It was he was embarrassed they lost and they want to win. Maybe, hopefully, the Leafs, that's when you know things are going to change here.
Yeah.
Nylander can be the one that can drive it. He's not doing this to get a contract. He's doing it because they lost in the second round and he's sick of losing in the spring every year. But what happens all the time is, in the spring, people freak and say, change. This isn't going to win. They can't win. They can't get it done. And then 17 games in the next year, people are like, pay him $13 million. Pay him $13 million. It's 17 in the regular season. And what I can't understand also about what's happening within this fan base, and I've lived it my whole life, I've been a part of it my whole life, the amount of Leaf fans who want the player to win these battles makes no sense to me. That doesn't mean you expect them to be shortchanged. And it doesn't mean you should expect them to take a massive hometown discount or anything like that. But this idea that the player should always win.
It's not about that.
Silly.
It's about it's not about the player winning, Brian. It's about Matthews got that.
Exactly.
Mitch Marner's paid that. And then John Tavares has got that, so he deserves it too. So just give it to him. And then I'm like, what are we trying to build a team that wins hockey games here or not?
But that's another part of it, and that's what I was trying to get to, is now it's like this pitting Nylander versus Marner. Well, and get rid of Mitch and it's like, what is going on here?
Okay, so you're right.
And like they're all good. They're all very good players.
Very good
great players,
star players. But like I go to, if he's on New Jersey, is he getting more than Jack Hughes? If he's on Tampa, is he getting Kucherov's money? Like, it depends on your situation.
Of course.
This situation here is a little out of whack just based on the pay structure
and that's
of them.
because the previous administration, now one guy at the top has been there the whole time. Shanahan's been in on all this too.
Right.
But they screwed themselves the last way around. We've talked about this countless times, and now they're still paying for it. They're still paying for it because they screwed up the last negotiations, including the idea that after all of that back and forth with Nylander when he was an RFA, you only got him for 6 years instead of 8. Because if he had an 8-year deal, he'd have 2 more years at 6'9", and this would just be, wow, look at this guy.
Biggest bargain in the league.
Biggest bargain in the
league.
Exactly. It would be like, wow, this guy's at 6'9" for another 2 years. Now you got a window. But instead, they screwed that up, even though that was the best one they even gave out.
Right.
Was 6 at 6'9". But even that, it wasn't good enough because it should have been 8 years.
Well, let me just reset
just
here.
ridiculous.
I just want to settle
you fired
down.
him up, Bo. You fired him up already.
Dude, I'm in the same place. I'm like, you know what? This has been great. They got 4 wins in a row. And for anybody that doesn't really know sports, they'd be looking at us and saying, look at these 3 turkeys. They're all riled up after 4 wins where we should be celebrating the victories. But all you see is like, people are telling me, like, tweeting me, give them the 13. I'm like, what are you talking about? First of all, why are you telling me?
They're not sane people saying, give them 13.
I know, but I'm just so, I don't know what the hell the word is to describe it. But in this market, it's like, the idea of these guys all getting paid, which they're wonderful players and they deserve the money, but it just seems like that sucks up so much oxygen. It's not even about being a good team. It's about make sure this guy gets paid. And it's like, what do you do? Come to Toronto to get paid and not do anything else? Just make sure the guy gets paid and everybody's happy. I don't know. It's just weird.
And that's why, Brad Treliving, in conjunction with Shanahan and the rest of the front office, they're going to have to make tough decisions.
I know. And I'm starting to get bothered by all people say to me is, what do you think, Neil? I just started saying to people, I really don't care.
That's where I'm at, too. It's
not my decision. I don't care. I hope he makes all the money he can.
Do you want to keep these guys or not? Right. Like, that's what the dollar amount is not really that relevant. Like, yes, it is in terms of dollars and cents, of course, and you got to try to win every contract, all that kind of stuff. But if it's 9-5 or 10-5, you can still make it happen, and then you're going to shave it somewhere else.
And the cap's going up, and you'll figure it out.
But what it is there's a self-esteem issue in this fan base. It's always been there because they haven't won in almost 60 years. So there's no understanding of what it is. They've won 1 playoff round in 20 years. So there's because you know what? Even though you said what you said, and I agree with your analysis, and I think most people do about what this team's doing right now, bluffing it a little bit, there should be a complete and utter confidence in this fan base when it comes to the regular season, because this is where they've thrived for years.
6 years.
They are a juggernaut in the regular season. I have no concerns about them making the playoffs, because in the regular season, the game is played a certain way, and these guys are rock stars. And you can live in a world where if you have 5 or 6 guys who are great, which is what they have, because Morgan Riley's been exceptional too.
Yep.
Riley's been one of the best defensemen in the league this year. So you got Matthews with 14 goals. You got Nylander with 27 points. Tavares has been good. Marner's been good, and he'll get better. I have no doubt about that. And Riley's been really good. And if the goaltending's solidified, that's 105 points of going to the playoffs. Yep. So that, as we said every spring, that's intoxicating, because there's also there's a future with this team where if you keep Marner, you keep Matthews, you keep Tavares, you keep Nylander, you keep Riley, you keep those 5 guys at whatever the price is going to be for, let's say, this year and another 4. What you're talking about is them rewriting every single record book this team has. That's what is available to them. I don't know if that matters to them necessarily. Matthews and Marner are already top 10 in points. Willie's like a year and a half away from probably getting there, a couple years away. Riley's going to be, right behind Salming probably in terms of like points and all that kind of stuff for a defenseman. All that is there, a ton of regular season winning. But I believe if you go down this route, which I think they probably will, because they've been on the record saying that's their plan.
Right.
Treliving basically said immediately, Matthews is going to get signed, and then Nylander is going to be our plan. They've already done one. Now they're moving to Nylander. What you're getting to now, because they're so deep into their careers, and they're mid to late 20s now, is the idea that was, I think, available, and I think a lot of Leaf fans were dreaming of 7 or 8 years ago, was a dynasty. They can do what Pittsburgh's done since Sid showed up. They could do what Chicago did when Taves and Kane showed up. They could do what Tampa did the last 4 or 5 years. That ship has probably sailed. So now what are you looking at? You're looking at probably the Ovechkin runway. Right. Can you get one? And I think that's probably what they're thinking, is throw everything at the wall, throw the money at these guys, keep them around. Matthews and Marner will be the top 2 point getters in team history. Willie will be top 5. Tavares, if he sticks around, could be top 10. Riley will be top 10. And if they can get one, it's the greatest group of all time. That's probably what they're hoping for. And that's probably what they're banking on. And Leaf fans have to decide if they're willing to take that ride and if it makes sense.
Yeah.
Anyway, I wasn't expecting to go there.
I wasn't
expecting to go there today, but that's
great.
That's probably where we're at.
I mean, I want to continue this chat because there's lots to chew on there. There's lots to break down on this because
I don't know if I really want to continue it. I want to have I haven't seen Hazy, you guys, in a while. I didn't want Hazy yelling at me. I didn't want to be yelling.
Listen, I'm not yelling. I'm not yelling at. This is what's happening in the city. It's what's happening in the fan
base. And this is topical in this city right now. Because what you said earlier, I agree. I don't think it's a game of perfect with them, but they get by. They're outscoring. They're finding the right things. They're doing what they can to get the wins. But ultimately, there is going to be contracts involved. But also, we got to look at the framework of this team and see how it is going to be built this year and next year. Because there is some things I think we should talk about.
Okay, let's talk about it.
We'll talk about it later.
Dave Poulin's coming up. We got a lot to get into. Luke Wilson will be in studio. We might have to move Poulin back. We just went a lot longer.
Yelled and screamed through his segment.
Well, I've been thinking. Everyone's thinking the same thing.
I'm tired of people asking me.
But it's Toronto.
I just finally said I don't want to be rude, but I don't care.
No, but it's like you don't think Elias Pettersson has more points, plays a more prominent position. He's an RFA and he's younger.
No, I know.
But I don't see anyone.
Let me say one more thing. But when it comes to Nylander, Nylander's money is good. It seems like it's way more than Pettersson.
But that's what I'm saying.
No, what are we talking about?
Because it doesn't drive the same way it does here.
Right.
That's in Toronto. It drives. In Toronto, it's been existent since the second these guys showed up. Since Tavares signed, it's been nonstop. It's been hanging over everyone, where it doesn't apply everywhere else. And that's why I think the toughest job for the front office is for them to not buy into it. Is they got to make sound decisions, and you got to build a winning team. And one thing Treliving said when he showed up, it's no longer the core 4. I don't want to hear it. It's the Maple Leafs.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. All right, OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. OverDrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Eagles-Chiefs tonight in Kansas City. Both teams coming off a bye. You got the Kelsey brothers going up against each other. You got Andy Reid against the Eagles. Mahomes versus Jalen Hurts.
It's going to be a great game tonight.
Super Bowl repeat. It's going to be a great game tonight.
Yeah.
Great game. And Hayes and Bro on the clock. And Vegas and FanDuel and every other book around the world, they are on notice.
Well, did you have
They're
a weird
on
something
notice.
happen this weekend? Was it a push or a -1?
No. The line literally moved after Hayes and Bro made the pick, right? It was
Okay.
Rams getting a point, and I think the books around the world shut down until we made the pick, and then it reset because we're literally
shut up,
shifting
man.
lines right now.
I saw Al's brother
Just
tweeting about
garbage.
it or
It's
something.
just- It's all nonsense. It's the football version of the Nylander contract. It's garbage.
Well, here's our buddy Dave Poulin, our TSN hockey analyst. How you doing, Pooley?
I'm doing great. You guys are talking about the Nylander contract?
No,
Oh, not at all.
we're trying to avoid that. How about it? Just how well he's playing. You know, is this guy? What is he? One of the 4 or 5 best players in the league right now? Like, what do you make of
He's
Willie?
really good. And, when you watch, I did a bunch of games in a row the last, 12 days. And so you saw guys from different teams, and you start making comparisons. I saw Vegas roll through. They looked really good. Jack Eichel seemed to have the puck on his stick the whole game, but Nylander's just taking over games right now. And like that, they're down 2-0. The play he makes on that first goal is created out of nothing. He picks up puck up at the blue line and sets up Bertuzzi right in front of the net. I mean, he's doing things that guys just don't do. There's a lot of guys having good years, and they're playing well. But to take over a game in the NHL is a different thing, and right now that's what he's got going.
Yeah, it's wild what he's doing. Like him ending the trip the way that he did was very fitting. And even the first game, that was him. Like he had 3 points. He's kind of Tavares had a really good start. But I think a lot of that is he's with Willie. Like Willie's he's bringing him along. Bertuzzi's come alive. He's got points in 17 straight, and none of them are cheap, Pooley. Like, it seems like every game, this guy's getting on the board with either primary assists or, like, a great goal. There's no cheap points keeping this streak alive, and if he keeps this up, there's no reason to believe he won't cruise past 20 games.
Well, even the primary versus the secondary assist. Like, he had the secondary assist on one of the goals, but he won the face-off. It was a 3-2 goal against Detroit. He won the face-off, then he went and got it on the wall, and he makes a good play to the back of the net. So even secondary assists are sometimes a little bit misleading. But he's in a good place right now. He just is. And he's so laissez-faire about the whole thing. And I think if you can imagine the Swedish Pete being a boost for him, I think it's actually going to be a boost for him. Like, how do you get better right now? But I think he's still got more. And his confidence has never lacked. We know that. But being able to translate that confidence in an individual play that he's got going right now, and it's really impressive.
Pooley, what do you... Oh, sorry. Go ahead,
Pooley, have you just been getting the old, what's his contract going to be every 2 seconds like everyone else on this show? Like, how does this work out? And we brought up Tkachuk off the top of the show, and we started ranting and raving about things. But how come Matthew Tkachuk had 200-point seasons in a row, and it was like he goes to Florida, and it's like, 9.5 is about what you get, and how come here everything is on steroids, in your opinion? And this guy is all of a sudden, he's got this like following that just thinks he should be making 14. I mean, it's a good start, but how does this all play out and make sense, I guess is my question.
It's the immediate structure right around him. That's the issue right now. It's not in the league. You could say, okay, well, here's a great comp for you. David Pastrnak. You came in the same year he did. You played with him in Sweden. What a perfect comp for you. He scored more goals than you. And you're like, well, no, I want the comps in my own locker room. That's the issue. The issue goes back, 5/6 years ago. And it's an inherited situation for Brett Treliving, and that's what it is. And the specific comp is Mitch Marner. That's the problem. They play the same position. And, Marner's been much more compensated than Nylander has over the last 5 years. And so Willie just says, okay, well, that's my starting point. I mean, that's, you can't, I don't care what Tkachuk makes in Florida. I don't care what Aho makes in Carolina. Their structures are different on their internal teams. And that's the way it is. And the internal salary cap is every bit as important as the external cap. It just is, because those are the guys you're sitting in the locker room with, and those are the direct comparisons. And when one plays, even if Marner were a centerman or, a defenseman, it would make a difference because you'd say, well, that's a different position. You can't even say that. So, I think that's the issue you're dealing with more than anything. Because then the next question is, Marner's going to want to race.
So how does that come up, David? Does his Nylander's camp say, I don't care what your league comparables are? And I know some agents do this. They structure it by what people on his own team are paid and what the output on the team versus the salary. So how would that come up in a conversation?
Exactly like you just said it. It's exactly what it would be. It would be them saying, we don't need to go to an arbitrator or a mediator to get comps. There's one right there, sitting right across the locker room from you. And that's the hard part right now. And, and this all started when they signed Tavares. And in that 11, there was a trickle down, and they all signed bang, bang, bang after that. And Willie was the one who took the hit, a little bit different timing and all that. But sometimes you get fortunate timing in your own cycle of what happens. And those guys did. They just did. And it wasn't their fault that the cap didn't go up over the pandemic. None of that is their fault. That was all, what the plan was. But the plan hasn't worked out like that. And now you have to deal with the consequences. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, and you could say, well, why would you sign a shorter-term deal? But if they're going big number, they want long-term. And they can offer the 8th year, so they can offer the most volume. But Tkachuk did a sign and trade. So there's so many different variables here. And the problem is you'd say, well, what if he doesn't play as well? Well, that doesn't seem to be an issue. He seems to be, if there's a guy with a perfect mentality to go into it like this, it's Willie. Even when they asked him the other day about continuing to speak, he kind of laughed. He said, yeah, well, if it doesn't keep going, it doesn't keep going, right? So, this is, I don't know where this ends up. It's going to be fascinating because the minute he were to sign, like if you were to hear, hey, he signed an 8-year deal at 9, you'd say, why? I mean, that would be the question you would ask. And if it's pure volume of money and he can get 8 years and all that, I guess that's fine. But I don't know. He's already taken a major hit on a relative basis for the last 5 years.
But Dave Poulin, our TSN hockey analyst. So I don't know if you ever took a trip like the one the Leafs just took, but I guess my understanding is they're not on the ice today. I think they're going to have an off day tomorrow, get back at it Wednesday, and then it's Sunday, 2 p.m. start in Chicago. Like, this is a weird schedule. I'm sure they're ecstatic they got the 4 points, because if you didn't, if you came home with 0 points or 1 point and then you don't play again for like 4 or 5 days, that would be tough. But I'm curious what you think, like, Sheldon Keefe's plan will be for this week, how long it might take for them to kind of get over the jet lag and get back into a kind of normal routine.
You just made me nervous because you said Sunday against Chicago, but that's Friday.
Friday.
Yes.
They play back-to-back, though, right? Is it Friday, Saturday?
Pittsburgh,
yeah.
That's right.
They pick up a half day there, but you made me nervous because I'm working the game, Brian. I'm like, wait a second.
Sorry about that.
Just messing with the schedule.
Just messing with my schedule. I actually like the way this went into and came out of the European trip. And going in, they had some time. They didn't rush over and play. And coming out of it, they all have similar schedules coming out where they have 4 or 5 days. So you'd come back, and I think there's 2 days off this week in some fashion. And today would be a day off. I'd go hard on Tuesday. I'd take Wednesday off too, Brian. And, and the sports science guys will help out with this. But Monday off, when you get back from a trip like that, isn't a family day off. If your wife's looking at you and saying, okay, we're going to do something with the kids, you're exhausted, you just got back from Europe, you want to sleep. Wednesday would be that day. So a work day tomorrow, get a good sweat, get all that in, get a workout in the weight room. Wednesday off, for me, this is what I would do, and then come back and get a good skate in Thursday and have them really fresh going into Friday. And it's a day and a half. It's a 1 o'clock start in Chicago and then a night game in Pittsburgh. So, and then there's a couple of days after that as well. So I like the way the league has thought about this and gapped the days coming out of this trip. Now, it's going to lead to, for the teams that were there, I look at their schedules. They've all got heavy Decembers, 13, 14, 15 games in December, and that's big because there's a Christmas break as well. But right around the trip, I really like the fact that they had some days going in, but more importantly, have some days coming out so they can really work it however they choose to.
I thought it was weird. I don't know if you looked at this week's schedule. The league is dark on Tuesday and Thursday. What the hell is that all about?
Well, Thursday's U.S. Thanksgiving.
I know, but
the NFL owns that day.
owns that day.
I think they're just staying out. I'm surprised by tomorrow. It can't be the in-season tournament, the NBA. Could be, I guess, for the American, maybe ESPN. Do they have that day in the States? And they don't
looking
want it?
at this whole week going, okay, like Tuesday, Thursday, no game scheduled. There's no Anaheim, San Jose,
Thursday, you'd think Canadian teams could play.
I agree. I feel like there's, I don't know, I wouldn't say missed opportunity, but it's just in a schedule where the games are always so lumped together, you can't find out of 32 teams, 2 teams to play on tomorrow night. Like it's a weird one.
Look at the schedules on Wednesday and Friday.
I know.
Like every single team is playing. But Thursday, I do understand, we've all lived in the States and having lived there and know the magnitude of Thanksgiving, that does make sense for me because you wouldn't want an American team traveling up to Canada to play that day. So you could have 2 Canadian teams playing for sure. Tuesday, I don't understand, Jamie. It doesn't, I don't know. How many dark days are there in the schedule? There's only a handful in the entire year.
Yeah.
And to have it, because I got news for you, and I mean, I'll remind you, Thanksgiving isn't like a 4-day holiday down there. It's like an 8-day holiday.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous what, I was at a university, and so Monday, Tuesday, the classes were Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or Tuesday and Thursday. So picture the prof, right? He knows everybody's going to travel Monday, or Wednesday rather, to get home Thursday. So he's like, our Wednesday is canceled. So don't even bother coming in Monday. And the Tuesday, Thursday guy, he's not having a Thursday class. So he's like, I know you're going home Wednesday, so don't bother coming in Tuesday. It is literally like a week off down there.
Yeah. Wow.
But Tuesday seems like a lost opportunity because a lot of, even from schools and kids, a lot of kids would already be home Tuesday night. I would think that would be an absolute great night to play. So I don't know. I'll ask that question, and we'll see if we can find an answer from Mahas Petros or one of the guys, on why that would be the case. And clearly they're loading up. Wednesday is one of the most significant party days in the U.S. in the calendar year on the night before Thanksgiving. So and everybody's playing.
Well, Poulin, you get to the bottom of that for us, and please direct that information to us because we'd like to take credit for it. And enjoy your week, pal, and we'll do it again soon. Thank you for this.
Okay, thanks for reminding me. I don't work Sunday. I work Friday.
Yes, Friday afternoon. Be there.
All squared away now.
Be there.
Have a
be
great
square.
night.
There's Dave Poulin, our TSN Hockey analyst.
And he's right because you guys know my stat. I was 98% cab to practice from places unknown the Thursday after the Wednesday.
Right.
Yeah.
U.S. Thanksgiving, always a green light the Wednesday night down in Carolina.
Back through the Zamboni room, change into my underwear in the trainer's room, and then walk upstairs in the Iceplex in Raleigh and act like I had been down making a new stick.
You went to bed early the night before, but always a big night. And, yeah, I would guess, again, Thursday, you're not competing with the NFL, but the NFL's so greedy. Now they got a game on Friday.
Yeah.
So the NHL and the NBA is probably like, really? Like,
you got to do this.
Seriously, we got to compete with this now on Friday. But, it must – obviously it's an arena availability thing, in terms of Tuesday. But you would think you'd be able to fire up some game.
Yeah.
Find a game or two. Come on now. But anyway, the Raptors have another in-season tournament game tomorrow. They're 0-1 after losing to Boston on Friday. They got Orlando here tomorrow night.
Oh,
yes.
Can't wait for that one.
They got to get back off the schneid. They're chasing the NBA Cup. Got to get to 1-1.
So you said that you think Silver was just creative and it's something different. Now that we're into this a little bit,
it had no different feeling on Friday, if that's what you're asking me. Like,
dude,
I know the court was there and
insane.
Drake was there and Drake was on, which was cool. But
maybe it's just a good illusion for fans
it.
to think that it's something that it's actually not. Do you know what I mean?
Well, They're literally regular season. They count
I
in the regular
know,
season
I know,
standings.
but
So,
it's almost like it's tricking the fans into thinking it's cooler, it's
Yeah.
more important.
It looked
and
cool.
I don't know, all the bells
It
and
looked cool.
whistles,
Did they
but
win that
actually
game?
no,
it's
they
nothing.
lost. They lost to Boston. Like the
That's
Celtics
right.
are a very good
That's
team.
right. They were hanging around there. and then-
They actually played pretty well,
Yeah.
but Boston's just significantly better, and Anunoby wasn't back yet, and
Yeah.
that was,
Not the
basically a foregone conclusion. They weren't going to win that game. But yeah, it's different. Different uniforms, different court,
Yep.
a slightly different standing in terms of tracking that on top of the 82 game schedule. We'll see. We'll see where it goes. All right. Luke Wilson in studio in about 15. OverDrive continues, TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, Luke Wilson coming up. Al's brother as well. Hayes and Bro on the clock tonight. Big Monday nighter, the biggest of the year. Chiefs-Eagles should be a great game. I hope it's a great game. And, we'll look back on what took place in the NFL yesterday. And the Bills got themselves a big win. Of course, the Grey Cup. Great CFL season wraps up with Montreal getting past Winnipeg.
Shout out to everyone in our building that does the CFL work all year long. Great
Yes.
job by all.
Yeah, phenomenal.
Yep.
I mean, it's obviously it's a big event clearly in the country, and TSN builds it up incredibly well. And
Yeah.
it went off without a hitch yesterday, as you would expect. Duffy was making light of it too online because like the panel before the game, everyone picked Winnipeg.
Yeah.
Everyone picked Winnipeg, and then of course people in Montreal are like, hey, what do you make of that now? And he's like,
Yeah.
what do you want out of us? Everyone thought Winnipeg was going to win. They were like an 8.5, 9-point favorite come
They were.
kickoff.
They were.
And credit to Montreal. It was a great game. Great finish, great game, great fourth quarter. Montreal deserved to win. They were the better team in the second half. And Rod Smith coming up later this afternoon. Rod had a great call. So we'll catch up with Rod. We'll get his take on that. Back into the Leafs weekend. There's a bunch going on in the NHL. A big benching over the weekend. Edmonton in action tonight. And we'll touch on all of that still to come. Hour 2 up next. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.